Welcome to the Knock Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA with with a brand new series with my friend Dayvaughn Mays, author and awesome individual. If you guys missed his testimony, you'll have to go back and look on the list. It was last week we did his official testimony, we'll call it that. And very glad to have him join us here today. And so, Dayvaughn Mays, you're fixing to kick one of the biggest icons in Christianity on the first show right off the bat with Isaiah 53. So, really excited to get this thing rolling. So, hopefully, you're doing well.
I'm good. I'm glad that you was able to have me again today. And yeah, we can definitely get into Isaiah 53. No matter where you go to show anything in it or not, Isaiah 53 is going to come up. So I figure we start with that.
Definitely. Well, cool deal. All right. So while just letting you people in YouTube land know, while he's doing his presentation, he won't have his video feed. I'm going to put full screen so you can see all the text. It's going to take up pretty much the full screen. So that way you guys can see things really clearly and take notes if you need to. And as we go there, so we're going to switch it over right now. All right. And he's in the process of doing that. Do you remember how you got there last time?
I shared. Can you see my screen now?
Yep, Nate. Yep, perfect. That's exactly what we wanted right there. Good job.
All right.
Good job.
So Isaiah 53. So of course we know that you can start in Isaiah 52, right? But for the sake of time, I'm gonna have you read Isaiah 52 on your own because a lot of people know what that says, but people want the meat and potatoes, right? They want to jump right to Isaiah 53. So what I'm gonna do is before I read Isaiah 53, I want to read Ezekiel chapter 19 because it reads just like Isaiah 53, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So Ezekiel 19, starting at verse 1. Moreover, take thou up a lamentation. Actually, let me change my translation. So
you like me.
Yeah, it reads a little bit better when you do the New King James Version.
Yeah. So,
moreover, take up a lamentation for the princes of Israel. So it tells you who it's talking about and say, just like Isaiah 53, when you read before that, starting in like Isaiah 40 up to 53, the servant is always identified as Israel. So, moreover, take up a lamentation for the princes of Israel and say, what is your mother? A lioness. She lay down among the lions. Among the young lions, she nourished her cubs. She brought up one of her cubs, and he became a young lion. So far we see Israel personified as a lion using the terms he and she, right? And he became a young lion. He learned to catch prey and he devoured men. The nations also heard of him. He was trapped in their pit and they brought him with chains to the land of Egypt. Of course, this is talking about Israel, but we see the term him there, right? When she saw that she waited, that her hope was lost, she took another of her cubs and made him a young lion. He roved among the lions and became a young lion. He learned to catch prey. He devoured men. He knew their desolate places and laid waste their cities. The land with its fullness was desolated by the noise of his roaring. Then the nation set against him from the provinces on every side and spread their net over him. He was trapped in their pit. They put him in a cage with chains and brought him to the king of Babylon. They brought him in nets that his voice should no longer be heard on the mountains of Israel. Your mother was like a vine in your bloodline. Remember this term vine because we're going to get into it. Planted by the waters, fruitful and full of branches because of many waters. She had strong branches for scepters of rulers. She towered in stature above the thick branches and was in her height amid the dense foliage. But she was plucked up in fury. She was cast down to the ground, and the east wind dried her fruit. Her strong branches were broken and withered. The fire consumed them, and now she is planted in the wilderness in a dry and thirsty ground. Fire has come out from a rod of her branches and devoured her fruit, so that she has no strong branch, a scepter for ruling. This is a lamentation and has become a lamentation. So I don't think anybody's going to try to put Jesus in there because it says him, right? It's not going to happen. But in the book of John, this is exactly what happened, basically. John 15:5. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit, for without me you can do nothing. So we see Jesus identified as this vine, right? So the Christians will say, see, the vine in Isaiah 53 is talking about Jesus. But when we just read in Ezekiel 19, that vine and that plant, they're not going to try to associate that with Jesus, right? So let's get into this. The arm of the Lord, Isaiah 53:1. Who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Well, we see in Exodus 6:6, therefore say to the children of Israel, I am the Lord. I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rescue you from their bondage, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. Deuteronomy 4:34. Or did God ever try to go and take for himself a nation from the midst of another nation by trials, by signs, by wonders, by war, by a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, and by great terrors, according to all that the Lord did for you before in Egypt before your eyes? So we see the arm of the Lord was revealed to Israel in Egypt. So how do we know that the arm of the Lord was revealed to people besides Israel? We know the Egyptians saw it, right? But we see this in the book of Kings, chapter 8, verse 41 through 43. Moreover, concerning a foreigner who is not of your people Israel, but has come from a far country for your name's sake, for they will hear of your great name and your strong hand and your outstretched arm, when he comes and prays toward this temple. Here in heaven your dwelling place, and do according to all for which the foreigner calls to you, that all peoples of the earth may know your name and fear you as do your people Israel, that they may know that this temple which I have built is called by your name. So we see the foreigners or the Gentiles knew about the outstretched arm of Israel. That's why they're coming to the temple, because they heard what happened in Egypt and all the other things going on in Israel. So when we go to Isaiah 53:2, this is where, when you deal in the Tanakh, you see the usage of something over and over and over again, and you can't take it out of context, right? So Isaiah 53:2 says, for he grew up before him as a tender plant. We just seen that same plant mentioned in Ezekiel 19. And as a root out of a dry ground. We seen the dry ground in Ezekiel 19. And he hath no form or comeliness. And when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. So there we see the word him. You can't automatically assume this is a person in context, because again, when you go to Isaiah 53 and you jump back to Isaiah 40 through 53, you're going to see Israel personified as the servant, as a collective nation. Jeremiah 2:21. Yet I planted thee a noble vine, holy, a right seed. How then art thou turned into a degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me? There goes the plant or the vine in Jeremiah. And who is that talking about? Isaiah 5:7. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. It doesn't get any clearer than this. And the men of Judah are his pleasant plant. We see he grew up before him as a tender plant in Isaiah 53:2. Isaiah 5:7 tells you the men of Judah are his pleasant plant. He looked for justice, but behold, oppression, for righteousness, but behold, a cry for help. A majestic vine, Ezekiel 17:1. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, pose a riddle and speak a parable to the house of Israel. Thus said, and say, thus says the Lord God. So it tells you in Isaiah 17, who was talking about, verse 1, a parable to the house of Israel. We can skip down to verse 8. It was planted in a good soil by many waters to bring forth branches, bear fruit, and become a majestic vine. Ezekiel 19:1. We read this earlier, remember? Moreover, take up a lamentation for the princes of Israel. So it's telling you who it's talking about. Ezekiel 19:10. Your mother was like a vine, and your bloodline planted by the waters, fruitful and full of branches because of many waters. I mean, at this point, I really don't have to go further to show you the plant in Isaiah 53:2 is talking about Israel, but we're going to go a little deeper. Psalm 80, 8-11. You transplanted a vine from Egypt. Now, who came from Egypt? You drove out nations and planted it. What nations got drove out and somebody came and took their place? You cleared the ground for it and it took root and filled the land. What takes root and fills the land? The mountains were covered with its shade, the mighty cedars with its branches. Its branches reached as far as the sea, its shoots as far as the river. You don't have to be a genius to understand what this is talking about. It tells you you transplanted a vine from Egypt. right? Psalm 80, 8 through 9. You transplanted a vine from Egypt. You drove out the nations and planted it. You cleared the ground for it, and it took root and filled the land. So here we go again, Isaiah 53 and 2. For he shall grow up before. Now, here's another problem. When it says, for he shall grow up before you as a tender plant, does it say he shall, or does it say he grew up before you? You know how the Christians play with the past tense and future tenses of words to try to make the New Testament, fit around Jesus. And as a root out of dry ground. There goes that root again. So when you go through the Tanakh, you can match up the context of what's being discussed when you have some background knowledge of the information. So let's deal with the him again in detail. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. Now, in Deuteronomy 28:63, it says, just as the Lord was once happy, pleased or delighted with you and gave you good things, prosperity, and made you grow in numbers, so then the Lord will be happy or pleased or delighted to ruin or destroy you. It doesn't say bruise in this expanded Bible, but I want to give you some different translations. And you will be removed from the land you are entering to take as your own. New International Version says, just as it pleased the Lord to make you prosper and increase in number, so it pleased him to ruin and destroy you. So it pleased God to destroy Israel because they were disobedient, just like it says in Isaiah 53, it pleased the Lord to bruise him. This is talking about the nation of Israel. New Catholic Bible, just as it pleased the Lord to make you prosper and to multiply your numbers, so it will please him to ruin and destroy you. Same context of God is pleased to bruise and put Israel to grief for disobedience, just as it pleased him to make them prosper. Isaiah 53 and 10 again, so we're going to deal with the him. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He has put him to grief. When you make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Hosea 8 and 3. Israel has rejected the good. The enemy will pursue him. Now, is the him in Hosea 8 and 3 a person, or is it the nation? It clearly says Israel. So we see him in context all over the place. Hosea 11 and 1. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. We know one person didn't come out of Egypt, so it can't be talking about a person.
Right.
But we see him, Hosea 14 and 5. I will be like the dew to Israel. He shall grow up like the lily and lengthen his roots like Lebanon. There goes those roots again. What has roots? A plant or a vine, a flower, or the pleasant plant? However you want to use this terminology, it's talking about Israel. So who is the she in Ezekiel 19? The Virgin Mary? Like if you're going to play these games, and I'm talking to, the Christians or the missionaries, you're going to have to address who's the she is, because we know these are personifications. Ezekiel 19, 12 through 13. But she was plucked up in the fury. She was cast down to the ground, and the east wind dried her fruit. Her strong branches were broken and withered. The fire consumed it, and now she is planted in the wilderness in a dry and thirsty ground. So who was in the wilderness crying for thirst? Who's the she? Okay. Is that Jesus? Right. Or is it Israel? Because we know Israel's called a she in a couple of different places. Isaiah 53 and 10. He shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. So let's deal with this. If you go back to Isaiah 44, leading up to 53, for I will pour water on him who is thirsty and floods on the dry ground. There goes this dry ground again, right? A plant needs water, right? I will pour my spirit on your descendants and my blessing on your offspring. What is the connection to Isaiah 53 and 10 and Isaiah 44 and 3? Seed or offspring, right? Isaiah 48, 19. Your descendants also would have been like the sand, and the offspring of your body like the grains of sand. His name would not have been cut off nor destroyed from before me. So if you jump to the very next chapter after Isaiah 53, go to chapter 54, Isaiah 54 and 3 says, for you shall expound to the right and to the left, and your descendants will inherit the nations and make the desolate cities inhabited. Why is this important? Who is it talking about in Isaiah 54 and 3? Does it jump from Isaiah 53 speaking about Jesus, or is it talking about Israel all along? So when you get to verse 54, chapter 54, these descendants are the ones when it says he shall see his seed. We see descendants right after Isaiah 53 and 10. We see a connection to some descendants who will inherit the nations. So now it's going to get a little deeper. Isaiah 53 and 10. He shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. Isaiah 53 8. He was taken from prison and from judgment. Who will declare his generation? So if you back up a little bit, this verse is translated all kinds of different ways. Let me show you. The Berean Study Bible, right? Because we know Jesus died without children. Verse 50, Isaiah 53 and 8 says, who can recount his descendants? Most translations say, who will declare his generation? But this translation says, who can recount his descendants? The International Children's Bible says, men took him away roughly and unfairly. He died without children to continue his family. Who is this talking about? New Living Translation, no one cared that he died without descendants. International Standard Version, who could even think about his descendants? So when it says who will declare his generation, that's kind of, vague. It's really not telling you about descendants or seed, right? Because it clearly says he shall see his seed. And this is not talking about disciples, because I've heard this argument too, right? Seed is not talking about disciples. Now, and I'm sure rabbis have discussed this too. We know sometimes somebody can be called the son of somebody because they're their teacher. We know Elisha called Elijah my father, which would imply he was his son on a spiritual level, like a spiritual father. We know Eliakim was called the father of Israel, which would imply spiritual sons. But this is why this is important. 2 Samuel 22 and 51. He is the tower of salvation for his kings and showed mercy to his anointed, unto David and to his seed forever. David's going to have children, physical children. Jesus didn't have no kids. So how could he be the descendant of David, the Messiah, when he doesn't continue the seed of David? Like it says, his seed forevermore.
Right.
Jeremiah 33 and 22. As the host of heaven cannot be numbered, neither the sand of the sea measured, so I will multiply the seed of David, my servant, and the Levites who minister unto me. Why would he multiply the seed of David and then stop when the Messiah is born? Doesn't make any sense. Because there has to be somebody that's going to give an inheritance to the children of the Messiah. I'm going to read that. Ezekiel 46, 16 through 18. Thus says the Lord God, if the prince gives a gift of some of his inheritance to any of his sons, it shall belong to his sons. It is their possession by inheritance. But if he gives a gift of some of his inheritance to one of his servants, it shall be his until the year of the liberty, after which it shall return to the prince. But his inheritance shall belong to his sons. It shall become theirs. So this is a physical descendants. This is not his disciples, right? Moreover, the prince shall not take any of the people's inheritance by evicting them from their property. He shall provide an inheritance for his sons from his own property. That word got cut off. But we see right here, there's a prince who's going to be give property to his sons. So some people try to say, oh, well, that prince is a Levite, right? Because the end of Ezekiel is real big on the temple. Okay, so let's say this prince is a Levite. He's still going to have children. And guess what? That same prince is going to offer a sacrifice for himself in Ezekiel 45, the chapter that precedes this chapter. So whether you want to say it's a prince that's a Levite or a prince that's Jesus, why is he giving a sacrifice for himself if Jesus is the last sacrifice, according to the book of Hebrews? So you're going to run into problems trying to make this prince Jesus. Either way you go, he's not going to have kids. And if he's the prince, then in the chapter that precedes this, he's going to give a sacrifice for himself and the people. Another problem is in Matthew 22 and 30, for in the resurrection, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like angels of God in heaven. So if you're not given in marriage, that means you're not having no kids. Ezekiel 37 and 25. Then they shall dwell in the land that I have given to Jacob my servant, where your fathers dwelt, and they shall dwell there, they, their children, and their children's children forever, and my servant David shall be their prince forever. So we know this servant David is not going to be physically David, it's going to be one of his descendants, but there's going to be children. And it says, in the land I've gave my servant Jacob. But in John 18:36, Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. So his kingdom wouldn't have nothing to do with the land given to my servant Jacob, would it? You're going to run into problems trying to make him fit into all these scenarios when the New Testament completely teaches against that. So let's get back to this offspring of the he shall see his seed, right? Their descendants shall be known among the Gentiles and their offspring among the people, right? Who is it talking about? Isaiah 61:6. But you shall be named the priests of the Lord. They shall call you the service of God. You shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory you shall boast. So the first problem is you should be named priests of the Lord. Why would God have priests in the future? Well, we know that in the book of Exodus, Israel is called a kingdom of priests. And just for background knowledge, priest does not mean a Levite. It just means somebody who serves in the office, right? So when it says you shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, this is an earthly place. The riches of the Gentiles would be earthly things like resources and things of that nature, right? If Jesus' kingdom is not part of this world, why would you even be dealing with the riches of the Gentiles, right? Isaiah 61:9. Their descendants, because if we continue from Isaiah 61:6, skip down to verse 9, their descendants shall be known among the Gentiles and their offspring among the people. So again, when we go back to Isaiah 53, when it talks about he shall see his seed, we see all the things that's going to happen for these descendants. Their descendants shall be known among the Gentiles and their offspring among the people. And who shall see, and all who see them shall acknowledge them that they are the posterity whom the Lord has blessed. The reason why they're blessed is because before we had a problem with the servant, because it says you're going to have to see your seed. Why? They was carried into Babylon. They have problems, exile. The whole thing of the suffering servant is problems. That's why it says you will see your seed, and then you're going to prosper later on. This is the prosperity in the future, dealing with that seed. So if we go back to dealing with the plant, where the seed comes from, right? Because the whole context of Isaiah 53 is the nation of Israel and what they had to deal with, what they went through, and how God basically punished them for not holding up the covenant. Exodus 15:17. You will bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which you have made for your own dwelling, the sanctuary, O Lord, which your hands have established. 2 Samuel 7:10. Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel and plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own and move no more, nor shall the sons of wickedness oppress them any more as previously. Jeremiah 24:6. For I will set my eyes on them for good, and I will bring them back to this land. I will build them and not pull them down. I will plant them and not pluck them up. Over and over again, we see Israel being planted and uprooted, planted and uprooted. Isaiah 16:21. Also, your people shall be righteous. Paul probably won't like this verse. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. Isaiah 61:3. To console those who mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they may be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. At this point, I mean, that's pretty much where we're going with it, right? Israel is the planting of God. He planted them. He took them out of Egypt, like it says earlier, and he planted them in Israel, and he had to uproot them because of their disobedience. So in conclusion, the vine and the seed is the nation of Israel and their descendants. The Messiah's physical children will be part of these descendants concerning he shall see his seed. Israel will see his seed in the sense that the nation will grow, of course. Jesus saw no seed. He is not the planted vine or plant that grew up before God. Context and history shows us the facts concerning Israel described as the vine or plant to the immediate audience that read Isaiah before there was a New Testament. So if you was reading Isaiah 53 before there was a New Testament, there's no way you would have concluded that this is some Messiah who's going to die for you and that the seed will be talking about his disciples. It just doesn't work. So with that being said, we can open it up to questions and comments. However you want to get down.
Right on. So if you guys want to have, if you have any questions or comments in chat, you can. I'll actually turn on our reliable, I say that like not very seriously, phone line. So number is 855-952-4253. And you're getting your, you're going to put your video back on, or are you going to use...
You talking to me?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you're talking to me, but are you talking about my PowerPoint?
Oh, no, you were done with the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, PowerPoint's done.
Okay, cool. So do you want to, if you're going to take questions, you want to re-engage your camera?
Yeah.
Maybe do the stop screen share, whatever you call it.
I can stop screen. Yep.
There we go. Right awesome. And then, time to put this baby back up here. Get the phone number on screen for you. 855-952-4253 is the magic number. So please,
can you
guys,
see me?
Yep, I sure can. Good job.
Okay, cool.
So I'll keep an eye open for the chat, but it's really interesting to see all this stuff. I was so surprised to see how much was actually wrong with just Isaiah 53 itself. Also, what's that? Oh yeah, let me see that. Oh yeah, good point. My wife just gave me this back. She stole your book, by the way.
Oh yeah.
So this is, if you guys are interested in, this is part one of a series of many, but this book right here, The Miseducation of Isaiah 53, you'll be able to find at his website. You can see it's a pretty healthy read. Text size is easy to read, pretty large, so it's really nice. Good index and glossary. So if you guys are interested, reach out to Dayvaughn Mays at cloudsoftor.com, and you can order the books through there. In fact, I'll switch numbers here. I got to keep my eye on the phone lines. It is open. Once again, 855-952-4253. It translates to 855-95-BIBLE. So, all right, I don't see any questions in chat, and I don't see any callers calling in just yet. So, Let's see. Let me put this back up for a final rendition of your email so they can write this down. I probably should make that a little bigger. This font is really kind of small. Let me do that. There we go. See, Dayvaughn Mays at cloudsoftor.com. So, okay, so next week, what's our plans for next week?
Well, what do you think about, I can of course go through every verse of Isaiah 53, or we can go to another book.
Why don't we break Isaiah 53 down? In fact, if you want to, if you want to start at 52:15 and then move forward, I don't know how you're going to approach that, but yeah,
we can jump back there. One of the reasons that I picked verse 2 is because there was so much content regarding that plant to show people when you have so much context around that plant, there's no dancing around that. You know what I mean? It's not vague. It's not ambiguous. It's very clear that through the Tanakh, I even went back to Exodus, that he's going to plant them in this land. You know what I mean? Yep. And Ezekiel broke it down. Jeremiah talks about the plant. I mean, it's all over the place. Lamentations, like the way the Tanakh reads, it personifies Israel, as a lion, as a her. It calls the nation my daughter. You know what I mean? Right. Nowhere is it talking about, nobody will try to claim that that means Jesus when it says her.
Right.
Why don't they do that? Right? Yep. They won't try to do that. When it talks about wisdom being a she, they won't try to say, oh, that's really Jesus, because it's just, they're not going to do that.
Right.
But it can't be talking about Israel when it says him. But it is on many occasions, like I showed tonight. I mean, it calls Israel him all over the place.
Sure.
The whole chapter of Ezekiel 19, he called him, her, she, lioness, all types of different things.
And that was an argument that was very long-lasting for a long time. Well, I say long-lasting while I was actually exiting the New Testament myself, while I was still kind of had one foot in the door. That I've struggled with, and I didn't have any answers on it right away, was that the singularity of the usage of that is. It sounds like
Right.
if you're cherry picking, it does sound like it's talking about an individual, but you've definitely proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's not the case at all. It's definitely a compound unity or whatever you call it. I don't know what that is, but for sure.
I mean, even the suffering. Excuse me. If you really deal with the suffering servant, right? How long was Jesus suffering? A day at most, right? If they went and got him at nighttime, let's say it's midnight, because it doesn't really, we can argue about what time it was. That's because it was dark, or because they said they did it at night so nobody would see him, and he got killed the next day and in the afternoon. So it wasn't even like a 24-hour period that he suffered. Okay, and they beat him up a little bit, put some crowns on his head, and then they threw him on the cross, and he died quick.
Yeah, right.
Most crucifixions, you don't die that quick,
3
right?
days would be.
So to say that he just suffered so much,
right,
is kind of ridiculous when you look at Israel suffering for, since their inception up until even today.
That's
you
a
see
really
with
good
the thing
point.
that happened.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just totally in agreement. That's a really great point that we haven't discussed before. So his period of suffering and his period of being in the tomb, so to speak, which I would call that his recovery. I don't think he died on the I don't think he died on the cross. I think they pulled him off, and he spent those 3 days or 2.5 days or 2.25 days recovering, and then they went to an empty tomb because he got up and walked away. Now that's speculation, but one thing is for sure and one thing Rabbi Federow mentioned before, he said, sacrifices have to stay dead, even if it was a valid sacrifice.
That's that right there is a smoking gun.
If
you don't stay dead, like none of the sacrifices in the Tanakh came back. Like does God take back your forgiveness? Like, okay, your bull is not dead anymore, so you really still owe for that bull.
Yep,
that doesn't work. You know what I mean? And not only that, so dealing with the resurrection story. I mean, it's funny that somebody asked Rabbi Singer this question the other day about why would they go to anoint a dead body, right? He's already buried.
Right.
So one thing is not clear. Well, it kind of tells you in the text that they kind of just laid him in the tomb. They didn't literally bury him. So if he was literally buried, like 6 feet under, like we do today, what were they going to do? Dig him up to put some anointing oil on him and put him back in the ground?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then touching a dead body, we know that's going to defile them. So that's not to say that's the end of the world, but they're going to be touching a dead body. Now, Mary probably could have did it, but the rest of the people couldn't have done it, right? Because it's relative. But if he's already dead and buried, what would even be the point? The tomb is sealed. A giant stone is in front of it, so nobody's going to smell him. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it says Lazarus was stinking after 4 days, and this is written in the New Testament. It says it's been 4 days, and Lazarus has begun to stink.
Right.
If Jesus was dead 3 days, that stink was coming up on him. So when Paul says he will not see corruption, he saw corruption.
Yep.
He started to decompose. So then they said, well, he didn't stay that way. And I got an answer for that, because I have a whole book on Psalm 16:10 that we're going to deal with to show that whole chapter has nothing to do with Jesus as well. That's completely, the words are played with and everything else. But why all this is important in Isaiah 53, because if there was no suffering servant, if you remove Isaiah 53 from the Christian playlist, right, or the playbook,
sure,
everything goes out the window. Because if you can show them every single place in the Tanakh, this ain't Jesus, this ain't Jesus, this ain't Jesus. If they can hold on to Isaiah 53, they still got a leg in the game, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Right.
When you take away that joker that they think they have, all bets are off.
Yeah. And you covered Zephaniah 3 earlier.
I didn't cover that today, because I was trying to focus on the vine and the seed.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Yeah,
next
I
week.
didn't, because and you know this in my book. I go through every single verse.
Right.
So I start from verse 1 all the way to verse 12.
Yep.
But you know what? Since we're here, I can do a little cheating.
Yeah, go for it. Just give a little teaser of what's going to happen next week. That'll be nice.
I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit.
Okay.
So you don't have to die to bear the iniquity of people. Okay?
Okay.
Now, why am I saying this? Isaiah 53:11. He will bear their iniquities. Does this mean that he has to die or shed blood, right? Exodus 28:38. So it shall be on Aaron's forehead that Aaron may bear the iniquity of the holy things.
Oh,
So
nice.
by Aaron bearing the iniquity, did Aaron have to die?
Right. Right.
No. Lamentations 5:7. Our fathers sin and are no more, but we bear their iniquities. You have to be alive to bear their iniquities, right?
Interesting.
Because they're dealing with their exile and their problems, right?
Right,
Their idols that they worship, they're dealing with all their problems. You don't have to die to bear iniquity.
I think Ezekiel went through that numerous times, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm about to read that. That's what. I'm not screen sharing no more, so you can't see it. But I got Ezekiel 4:4-6 on the screen right now.
Nice.
So it says, "Lie on your left side, and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel upon it, according to the number of the days that you lie on it. You shall bear their iniquity. For I have laid on you the years of the iniquity according to the number of the days, 390 days. So you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Israel. And when you have completed them, lie again on your right side, that you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Judah for 40 days. I have laid on you a day for each year." So we got Ezekiel bearing the iniquity of everybody, not a drop of blood shed. And Ezekiel was a priest.
Yep.
He could have easily told him to shed a little priest blood, right?
Yeah.
He didn't tell him to do that.
Yep.
So how is Ezekiel able to bear the iniquity of the whole nation of Israel without shedding any blood?
Yeah.
Now, another crucial part is when they hear the term, he poured out his soul unto death. But what does it mean to pour out your soul, first of all? 1 Samuel 1:15. But Hannah answered and said, "No, my Lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor intoxicating drink, but have poured out my soul before the Lord." Did Hannah die, William, to pour out her soul?
No.
Job 30:16. And now my soul is poured out because of my plight. The days of affliction have taken hold of me. Did Job die?
No.
Or not Job, but specifically, because we know there's 3 people talking in Job. But
Right.
nobody died right there. Psalm 42:4. When I remember these things, I pour out my soul within me. For I used to go to with the multitude. I went with them to the house of God with the voice of joy and praise, with the multitude that kept a pilgrim feast. 3 different times we see somebody pouring out their soul. Nobody had to die, right? Here's the kicker. He poured out his soul unto death. So if you go to the unto death part, right, it sounds like, well, somebody died, right?
Right.
Poured out his soul unto death. Judges 16:6. And it came to pass, when she pressed him daily with her words and urged him, that his soul was vexed to death. Now, we know Samson did not die when he told Delilah what was going on, right? Now, Jonah 4:9. And God said to Jonah, Dost thou well to be angry over the gourd? And he said, I will be angry even unto death. I'm just very upset, right? That's basically what he's saying.
Right. Taking
Samson
all I can take.
was vexed to death. He was irritated, right? Well, we say irritated today.
Yeah, right.
Now here's the joker. Matthew 26:38. Who's speaking? Then he said to them, my soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me. Did Jesus die right then?
Nope. Right.
Unto death. It's a figure of speech.
Yeah, right.
It just means you're praying real tough, right?
Right.
I'm just
hard.
broken down,
Yep.
right? That's all that means. It doesn't mean he died when he poured out his soul.
Right.
He's just giving a very serious prayer. You see, they can't do nothing with that. Psalm 62:8. Trust in him at all times, you people. Pour out your heart. Does that mean you got to die, right? Pour out your heart before him. God is our refuge, right? Psalm 22:14. They like Psalm 22, right?
Yep.
I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax; it has melted within me. He just sad.
Yep.
That's all that means.
Right.
Psalm 142:2. I pour out my complaint before him. I declare him my trouble. I'm going through it. I'm pouring out my soul.
Yeah, you're pretty much giving it all you got.
You see what I'm saying?
When you pour out a glass of water, you empty the glass.
In context, yes.
You empty yourself.
Praying unto death is just a figure of speech.
Right.
and Jesus himself used it.
Right on.
So, that right there closes out Isaiah 50. No, I'm just playing. But I mean,
Right.
in context, we can see that this has nothing to do with the New Testament. It's just,
Right.
Israel dealing with their problems, like they've been dealing with their problems. Read the book of Lamentations. It's a sad book, and it reads like Isaiah 53.
Have you heard, and this is a longtime viewer, Fat Vegan, on YouTube, he said that the Jesus story in India says that he lived after the crucifixion. He never died.
I heard a Muslim say that. The Muslims say that he had I heard different versions. I heard that he lived through the crucifixion. Then I heard that he had a twin brother.
Well, I will tell you that there's a story in the complete works of Josephus, where Josephus himself he had three friends that somehow got crucified also, and he found out about it, and he went and pleaded before the king, and basically told him, "Hey, these guys are my friends." And Josephus was hand in hand with them, so of course he granted his wish to pull them down. Two of them died, and they had already been on the cross like 3 days. This is like in their third day. Two of them had died, and one of them was still alive, and so the one that came down after 3 days was still alive. So how could Jesus die after only like 12 to 36 hours? Let's give a little bit of credit there.
I'm gonna go out on a limb right here. Now, we talked about this the other day after I did my class on Thursday on the TEV. After it was over, we were talking about this. I don't think it got recorded. I can ask Ross or Dennis. But go to Matthew 27:16. Now, I want to throw something at the people real quick because I think this is real interesting.
Okay. I'm looking it up here also. Oh, I'm in the wrong book. Matthew. You said Matthew 27:16?
Mm-hmm. Because we talking about if he had a twin brother or somebody that looked like him or something going on like that, right? It's kind of weird how it's the different versions go in India and in Islam. Where would they even get this idea from?
Barabbas? Oh, what? I never thought about that.
But check this out. The footnote on the New King James Version says Jesus Barabbas. So there was two Jesuses in jail. And let's translate that.
Wow.
Jesus Barabbas. Jesus, son of the Father?
Yeah.
Or Jesus the Christ? Which one you want us to let out of jail?
Right.
That's a problem.
Interesting.
Why did they omit the word Jesus in most translations and they just call him Barabbas?
Right.
There was two Jesuses in jail at the same time.
How about that?
In the complete Jewish Bible, it says there was at the time a notorious prisoner being held named Yeshua Bar Abba. In the what translation is this? Contemporary English version. Do you want Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who was called the Messiah?
That's pretty crazy. Wow.
This is in the New Testament. Go to Bible Gateway, type in Matthew 27:16, and look at all the different translations. That's two so far, right?
Yep.
That says Jesus Barabbas. I'm going to find another one. Let me see. This says the Mounts Reverse Interlinear New Testament. That's a lot, right?
That is a mouthful.
Which one do you want me to release for you? Jesus Barabbas or Jesus who was called Messiah?
How about that?
So we got two Jesuses in jail. And then, of course, we got Bar Jesus later on in the book of Acts, right? We got Jesus who was surnamed Justice in the book of Acts. So if you used to ask the Christian back then, which Jesus do you believe? They're going to say, which one?
Right. Interesting. It's a tangled web.
I don't know, man. It's probably too many problems going on here.
It does. No doubt.
So no questions, huh?
No questions, no calls. That's okay, though. There are a lot of compliments, though. A lot of compliments.
That's good. You know what? The fact that people don't have questions, meaning to me that's no news is good news. Nobody's challenging the information.
Yep.
There's nothing that wasn't made clear.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm completely happy with that. I'm glad that we got this kicked off. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and this is turning out. This is going to be a great series for sure. I mean, hey, Chris, where's that stack of books right there? Hand those to me real fast. My wife is in here for all you talkers out there. She's in here listening in. So this is one of, like I said, this is one of many books. That he's got. I think you've got 10, or do you have more than 10?
I have more than 10, but I took them all down. I only have 10 in circulation right now on Amazon.
Okay.
Because what I wanted to do is, what I found was when I had like 30 books published, right?
Right.
But what I was getting in the feedback is everybody was still looking at the scriptures with Christian eyes, right?
Yep.
So I said, you know what? If I just focus on these 10 books and get the New Testament out of people's view, then I can teach the Torah without dealing with all these Christian questions when I'm trying to teach just a simple chapter of the Torah. You know what I mean? So I figured if that can be, my main goal, and if I could sell a whole bunch, not necessarily sell a whole bunch of books, but if I can get as many books out to the people that tear down the false fulfillment citations, was what the series is called, the false fulfillment citation series. Mm-hmm. Then people can learn Torah the way that they're supposed to learn it without trying to stick Jesus in every little nook and cranny.
Nice. Now, so they can actually go to cloudsoftorah.com. They're in order, or do they go to Amazon? What's preferred?
Well, if they go to cloudsoftorah.com, the link will take you to Amazon.
Oh,
so
good.
Either or, you can find them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. But yeah, so most of these are they're basically workbook size, as you can see this one here. Mm-hmm. Who was the prophet like Moses, and it's very well laid out inside the text. There's tons and tons of scripture cross references in here. It's insane. The text is of a good size, as you guys can see. Hope I'm holding that steady long enough. So, yep. And so,
actually, on Thursday, I'm going to be dealing with Deuteronomy 18. So on Thursday at 6 o'clock my time, I go through the Tiv and we do a class.
Okay, and is that's every Thursday?
Mm-hmm, every Thursday.
If
you want to sign up for the classes, if you go to nativ.org,
there you go.
You can sign up and you'll get the link.
That's good. And so if you want to, that way you're staying like fresh and on top of it, that's fresh in your mind, why don't we do the same thing? Is that a book dedicated to that?
Yeah, well, it's not. I'm not necessarily going to do the whole book. I'm just going to pick out because I only have I try to keep it under an hour over there. But there's definitely, Deuteronomy 18 is the book. I
like this one.
Yeah, it's basically what I'm doing on the TV right now. I'm doing the Messianic prophecies.
Okay.
So I started in Genesis. I did Genesis 3:15, Genesis 49:10. This last Thursday I did Numbers 24, talking about the star out of Jacob, and then next Thursday I'm going to do Deuteronomy 18. Right
on. Yeah, you've got some really good heavy hitters here. Who was cut off in Daniel 9:26? That's a huge machloket. And then you've got the false fulfillment citations of Matthew chapter 2, of course. Like I say, all these books are pretty much the same size except for the one in Isaiah. So they're definitely good, easy reads.
I had to cover so much information in Isaiah. I had to cover Jephthah. I had to cover Isaac,
the Lion of
Moses. I mean, yeah.
Yep, Psalm 16:10.
Oh, yep, Psalm 16.
Right.
And the thing is the book of Psalms is they mistranslate Psalms so bad.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like they attacked that book. You know what I mean? But they rip everything out of context. So when you read Psalm 22, you start at verse 1, and you walk through it, you will see how many times the word lion is even used in that chapter.
Right.
To describe, what's going on. And then in context, it wouldn't even make sense the way that they use it in the New Testament. You know what I mean? It's poorly done. But for ignorant people, and when you're forcing people to listen to your religion and you won't let them read, then, it's easy to get away with that kind of stuff.
Right, for sure. There is one thing. I'm not very good at multitasking. Hang on 1 second. So next week when we come back in, we started a little bit later today because it was the first setup. I had to create a whole new document. But next week we should be kicking off right at 2:30 as far as I know, on Monday. I'm sorry, on Sunday, 2:30 p.m. That's going to be our attempted regular schedule from here on out. So,
Yep.
so with that said, that's kind of what we're going to be doing. So, appreciate you, man. This is a great series.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
You bet. So you guys, thank you for a great day, and that's the last show for today. Tomorrow I've got Rabbi Skobac in the morning, 8:30 a.m. Central, and then Rabbi Federow at 7 p.m. Central, and we may have a testimonial on Tuesday night at 7. We'll find out. I'll let you know soon. So, all right, my friends, thank you all for tuning in, and Dayvaughn Mays, you should have a great week, and shalom, everybody.
You do the same. Shalom.
Thanks. Shalom.